Excellent. Actually, let's see if we can. Maybe this will work. Really does hate that. Okay, we'll just do this the hard way. Slides. Okay. So hopefully the stream is up and folks in the chat will tell me if the audio is not working. But feel free to pipe up if you got any questions and whatnot.
Yeah.
So we are going to be talking about interactive narrative scripting with Ink. Ink is a scripting language that was created, 10 plus years ago by a company called Inkle. They've created a couple of interactive stories throughout the years. They never got too popular, but the actual scripting language has been used in a number of games. We'll look at a couple of those in the end here. And so we're basically just going to go through the basic syntax of how you actually use the scripting language, a couple of the techniques that you use to start branching your narratives, how you can save variables and functions and whatnot, because this is a full programming language for narrative design. So yeah, like I said, this is a interactive storytelling language. It's really designed for writers. There is a editor called Inky that we can show here in a second that you can use. You don't have to touch a compiler or Visual Studio, Unity, any of those. You can just completely write in the editor and actually run your stories from there just to, play test it and whatnot. Let's see, went through the variables. There's conditions, functions, loops, flow control, all of that good stuff. I guess we can start with, it is open source, so it's all on GitHub through Inkle's GitHub repository. And it does work with all of the major game engines, so Unity, Unreal, Godot. I think there's like Twine integration as well, if you're familiar with that. And it does support both linear and non-linear narratives, but I think the actual strength of it is in branching narratives. So here we can flip over to the web page, other web page. We can go here. This is the documentation. Documentation is actually really, really good. The documentation for Ink is all on their GitHub as well. And we're not going to go through everything here, but this does a really good job of walking you through all of the basics and the advanced stuff as well. Back on their main GitHub, there is the editor called Inky. And Inky I've got on my desktop. Yes, cancel. Yoink. Here. So, this is Inky. And throw it up here for the folks at home to see. Here on the left-hand side, you have the actual script, and on the right, it is really hard to see, but you have the actual story here. And I don't know if I can make this bigger. Should be able to. Nope. View, zoom. That's better. And we'll do that here too. There. Okay, so the scripting language is basically executed from top to bottom, and everything in the just regular text will show up as prose for you. And then we have two choices. Your choices are designated with this asterisk. So it will execute from anything you type in from top to bottom. There was a cow. And here in the top right, you can rewind or start all over. And it just runs here. You can create additional choices here. And you can just do a star. Third choice here. And then it just instantly shows up as a third choice. Right now, these choices don't really do much. You can select them, and then it just immediately continues on with the rest of your script here. And you have this, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but this is how you can collapse all of your choices down into a single branch, is what they call them. So no matter what you choose, it always will wind up living happily ever after. There are other tools you can use. You can use Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio. There are plugins for the scripting language. So if you wanted to use for IntelliSense and whatnot, code completion, that all works. There's even some AI tool sets, so you can get your AI agent on if you so choose. And in Unity, the dialogue system for Unity by Pixel Crushers has a ink integration as well, which is super cool. We'll show that off in just a bit here. And we ran the first script, so that's good. Here. All right, so the real power here is in what they call knots and stitches. And you can actually just run them straight here with no branching. But if you were to, let's see, will it let me do this? Oh no. Let's see, I'll do this the easy way. Yoink. Here. So here we've got our first knot here. The knots start with 2 equal signs and then a heading. The later equal signs are just for formatting. It's not really necessary. The same with your choices here. They can just be a single star. You can nest them in, so subsequent choices can have sub-choices. And you also have knots that you can, I really should have saved this as a script somewhere. Yoink, and there, that's our first response. And our intro, just type it. Intro, blank, and I am the village guide. There. Spaces don't actually matter, neither does indentation. Why is that? Oh, yeah, because that actually doesn't go anywhere. And this is a special branch just called end. So this arrow icon is kind of a redirect. They call it a divert. So after you make this choice, it will go into the response and then end. I think I need a space there. And it really doesn't, oh, it has to be all capitals. There's another one called done as well. There we go. And you can't just start with a knot. It needs to have an actual entry point. So the top line here, we can just have a divert that will go into greeting. There. And then, so now the first thing we do is we hop over into greeting. Then we have our 2 responses here. Hi, and who are you? You click 1, it goes into nice to meet you, and it ends. If you want to restart, you can just click it in the corner here, go to the other branch, and then we go, who are you? I am the village guide. So here, when we go into our response, the divert just goes immediately into the response here on the same line. It doesn't have to be that way. You can do brackets here. This will only show this text in your choice. And then when you go into the response, it will just have the response here. And we can...
Are you able to make multiple responses?
Yes. Yeah, so you can do multiple responses. You don't have to end it here. We'll show a little bit more complicated ones here in a second. But here I want to show everyone else this. So this one is what we were talking about earlier. Here. And we can go back. And that's our end of our stories. So this is like your most basic branching narrative here. Okay, go back. Blue. Okay. So yeah, the asterisk is a player choice, and each line is a selectable option. So here we can, like we saw, show multiple, here we go, multiple choices. We've had that. We saw the divert. That's how you can go between different knots. I'd like to think of each knot as a new scene in your story. What I'm working on in Unity is each knot is going to be its own kind of self-contained story event for the game. So during certain parts, when you go to certain locations, you will get prompted, an event will happen. So like in your grand strategy games, you'll have a story event that happens that like some choice has to be made to, you know, tax your citizens or not. And that will influence other variables in your story in order to progress and branch your narrative. So we'll get into variables later, actually now. Got here. All right. So for variables, these are a bit tricky because in regular programming languages, most of them, a lot of them are strongly typed. In Ink, the variables are not typed at all. You just have a var keyword and then a variable name. And then that variable can be numbers, it can be text, or it can be a Boolean variable, so true or false. And that's basically it. So what you'll end up doing is your variables will be, it can be things like your character's name. Like if you can choose your player name, you can add that as a variable. You can also have lists, and we'll go through how to like randomly choose from a list of variables in order to get some more procedural generation going on there. In order to update a variable after you declare it, because it has to be declared first, and once you declare it, you can then change that variable in your story by using the tilde operator, and then you can change that variable. And then your dialogue can actually reference those variables. We've got an example here. So here at the bottom, we have a variable has key, and if it is true, this the colon here is how you do an if statement. So it needs to be in brackets. So anything in brackets here will be a conditional. So anything after the brackets, if the conditional is true, then after the brackets will, if it's a choice, then that choice will be enabled. If it's false, then that choice won't be presented to the player at all. So in this example here, the if statement is just for a string. So if, like this will be like your dialogue here. So if you have the key and that variable is true, then you will see you unlock the hidden door. Or if it is false, you will see the door is locked tight. You would probably have this in some kind of a loop. So you can have diverts go back to previous knots that you may have been to before, and you can loop through the dialogue choices again. So if you find the key later, you can go back to where this conditional is, and then you can unlock the door and then progress on down that branch of the story. So with all of that branching, to keep the narrative basically in check, you don't want to branch out forever, because that's a whole lot of different endings you have to write and make content for, especially if you're using 3D game engines for text-based adventures. It's a lot easier to just keep writing forever. But for video games, you want to eventually gather all of your choices back down into more manageable states. So if you remember, Mass Effect's famous ending of all of your choices came down to one choice at the end with 3 branches off of that. That was what they call here a gather point. So what we saw earlier in the first example was the gather point was happily ever after. So no matter what other choices you made, this gather point, which is just a minus sign at the end, will rejoin all of your various branches after they've run their course. So here, and here is another example here. So you can either go left and the path is dark, you can go right, the path is bright, but no matter where you go, you're going to arrive at the crossroads there. So we talked about knots, and those are like your major chapters, scenes, whatnot you want to call them. There's also stitches, which are subsections. I guess you can call them subknots. So if your branch, your knot, starts to get super huge, you can break that up into subsections. I don't even know if I have any examples of that somewhere. We might. So Inky also has an ink library repo that has snippets and stories. The intercept is a longer story here that I think I have it in Unity. We can look it up. But this does have examples of variables. There's constants. We'll look at functions here in a second. But I wanted to see if this has subknots, and it does not look like it. So the example from the docs is like you have a knot for a train. I think they use the Orient Express. And there's knots, stitches, and then each stitch would be like a train car in the on the train. It's on here somewhere. Weave, gathers, nested. We'll come back. That's fine. Boop. All right. Stitch. There we go. All right. So with functions, there are a number of built-in functions that you can use to operate on your variables. There is a random, there is a floor, and I think there's a ceiling. We'll take a look at it. Because a lot of these here. We'll just take a quick look. So functions are kind of like the knots in that they precede with equal signs and the word function. Here, we'll look at the docs a little bit. Here. Here we go. Okay. Here are functions. So basically, they start with equal signs, functions, and then the name of that function. And then they have a return type. And it's just a tilde, return, and then one of your types. So it can be integer, it can be string, or it can be a bool. And the functions always return exactly from where you called them, but they don't have to return anything. And so here, in the docs. It just has Monsieur Fogg was looking, and then you have in curly brackets the function describe health, and then a variable that gets passed into it. So your function here, describe health, and x, this will be a whatever you're passing into it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a number, but for this function, it's basically like a switch statement. So you have, if the health is 100, then it'll return sprightly. So Monsieur Fogg was looking sprightly. Or if it's less than 75, it'll be chipper. Or greater than 45, it'll be somewhat flagging. And anything less than that, it'll just return despondent. And there are, does it have the built-in functions? It's there somewhere. There's something else, math. Yeah, a lot of them are just the math function. So there's power, boop, boop, boop. Random between two numbers, int floor, and float. And those are just casting into your numbers. There's string queries, so you can equal, does not equal, or contains, which is the question mark. So if the second part is contained within the first part, this will be true. We have our else, ifs. And there is loops. Loops are here somewhere. Functions, I guess there's a couple of restrictions here in that functions, they cannot contain stitches or diverts because they have to return exactly where they were called from. It can include any strings or other printed content. You can call functions from other functions. They can be recursive, and they can return any value of any of the types. So the string and spools. You should be careful with these because there is kind of a call stack here, but it can get confused and sometimes break stuff if you start recursing weirdly. Okay. Boop. Here in the snippets, we've got a random list here. So this we can show the snippets from ink here, ink library. Snippets, random. So here is just a random list. So you would, I guess I need to actually show what a list looks like. So a list is basically will be it's kind of like an enum where it is a variable with a list of other variables in it in curly brackets. We can show that here in knowledge states. here. So this is actually part of one of their games that they made back in the day called Heaven's Vault. Used a system like this. So for a list, which you'll probably be using a lot here, it starts with list in all caps, the name equals, and then you'll have a list of other variables. So these will probably just end up being like bools here. So you can think of them like flags. So here we have a chain. This is a quest chain, basically. So first you will unlock something up there, which then you can go into stones up there, tomb on the hill, and ship burial under the hill. We also have a list of facts, which is water in well, ships are ancient, jam is tasty. And these have to be declared at when this list is created. So you won't be able to add facts to this list after it's created. So you'll probably just want a giant list of all of the facts in your game. That way you can add these facts to a variable, which would be another list here. So this knowledge state variable can technically be a list, but it's going to be empty. And then you can add to this variable with plus equals here. So you can learn with this function, you can learn a fact, and then you can pass in one of these simple facts, and then that'll be added to your knowledge state. And then what you can do is you can return if there is a fact in your knowledge base. So if you do the knowledge state (fact), this will test if that fact is in your knowledge state. If it contains that fact, then this will return true. So you can just ask if you know this fact, then you can start doing stuff with that. So down here in your example scene here, so in the scene, the camp is bustling with activity. And then since this is in the brackets here, if you know jam is tasty, then this choice will appear for you. If you don't know it, then this choice won't show up for you at all. The other thing, actually, that I forgot to go over, for your choices, there are things called sticky choices. And that's what this plus here is for. So as long as you know jam is tasty, this will show up no matter how many times you loop through this. The other ones, these choices will disappear if you loop back through the example scene again. These choices will go away after you've chosen them. And here is how you do your nested choices here. You just put 2 stars in underneath the first choice. So actually, we can probably just here, yeah, we'll just copy this. So here we are jumping straight into our example scene. We don't know anything. So here in our scene, we don't know that the jam is tasty. We don't know that something is up there. So we just have this choice here. We don't know something is up there. We don't know tomb is on the hill. We don't know that the ships are ancient, but we also don't know that the ship burial's under the hill. So the only thing we have is, what's all this bustling in the camp? We click it. We go down into here. There's something up there. Dude's eating some toast. And then we have our two sub choices here, which is what's specifically up there, or we can ask about what he's eating. We can keep going. Here, and so here we go down into wherever that is. Here. And then what happens is it jumps down into the end, so there's nothing else to display. And then the choice here will loop back into example scene. So it's not going to get to the end until we know what is under the hill and the ships are ancient. So that we loop back around, back into the camp is bustling with activity, and then we have extra choices here. So we can just go up to here. We can grab here. Okay, so we know that there is a tomb on the hill, and we go loop back around again. There we go. And we now reach the end, since we now know that the ships are buried under the hill, ships are ancient, gotta go to the museum, and I'm going to lose my bet. And then we end. Since we end here, we don't actually loop back around, back into the example scene, and then the story ends. Okay. So we can we talked about lists and items. Did not talk about random. So random, you can go back into our snippets. I think this one has random. Balls, it doesn't. So for a random encounter, you can, not that one, choices, story flow. Here we go. So we have cycles and sequences. In your curly brackets here, what you can do is you can have different choices separated by, I guess, the pipe symbol. And this makes a sequence here. So you can have a sequence of really any variable or phrase. But what you can do is you can, I guess the sequence will actually, each time this runs, it will go through one at a time. So it will count down 3, 2, 1. And then that's it. And I think the last one repeats when you get to the end, because it will continue to show the final element there. If you put an ampersand in front of the sequence, it will repeat. So if you have like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you lead it with an ampersand, it will loop after you get to Sunday. It will loop back to Monday. Then there is also only once. So if you have a exclamation point in front of your sequence, then it will go only once. And then at that point, it won't show anything else. So if you start, do it again, it will just say, he told me a joke, and that's it. The shuffle, which I think is probably what you'll use most for these kinds of things, you have a tilde in front of your sequence. So if you want to do a coin toss between heads and tails, you would do the open bracket tilde heads, pipe symbol tails, close paren. And then every time you run through that dialogue, it will either show heads or tails randomly. Your sequence can be blank as well. So if you want something to only happen 1 out of 5 times, you can do that. You just have 5 blank spaces, and then you can make that a random chance to happen. You can combine them as well. So you can have a random sequence of 2 other sequences. I would avoid doing that just because it's really hard to see what that is actually going to turn out when you run them. So it's just hard to test whether or not that's something you actually want to do or not. But you can do that. Those sequences can be inside your text choice as well, and that will just show up as your text choices. I forgot about the brackets in your choices. So what you can do is, if you don't want your dialogue showing up as a choice, you can put it in brackets here, and it will only show what you want in case you want that. You can so let's do this. Here. So we can say something in here. I don't know what. So if you wanted to hide your text response from the player, you can put that in square brackets here. And then when you create them, after you say that, then what comes afterwards will show up here in your dialogue. Now, you might not want that either. You might just want the player to, where's my delete? Here. Oops, not currently. So here, what you have in your choice will just show up as the choice and not in any subsequent dialogue. So that is what you would do for like a game dialogue system where you don't want the response to include what the player said. In like a web-based thing, you might want to have all of your text there. But here, we can just do that. Like that. So the other thing you can do here is you can use tags. This will get more into the engine integration side, but what you can do is you can have comments with just double backslash like normal, and that will be ignored by the compiler, and it won't show up in in your story at all. Here. But you can also do a pound sign for a tag. This will get displayed. Here. So what you will need to do is you can parse this in your editor. So this will be just a normal string, but you can parse for any pound signs, and then you can do whatever you want to with this tag. So this could be like music or cutscene or profile picture. If you're doing dialogue, you might want to have picture of whoever is speaking can be here. It can be like actor name. And you can also have names in your actual dialogue. So you can do like this. And then this is another way that people will put kind of tags for people speaking dialogue. So in your game, you can look for a colon, and whoever was before that colon is who's speaking. So you can have voice lines, pictures, whatever you need to display this dialogue as this character speaking. You can parse it that way. So it's kind of two ways of distinguishing who is actually speaking. So we could also have a tag here and just say like guide. Guide, if I can spell guide. And I guess we can actually look into Unity now. Okay. This is going to be hard for y'all to see. Okay. Let's make sure this works. We are not going to go super deep into the dialogue system for Unity, but it does have a really neat integration here. Oh no, this is the first time I'm playing this on this laptop. This might take a minute for it to load. So we also have the Unity ink integration on here as well. Okay, that. Ew. Okay. Show this real quick. Okay. So here in our window, because we have, I'll show here in the package manager, here we go. I've got the ink package here from Inkle, the Unity integration. It's in the GitHub here. And yeah, that's basically it. 1.2.2. It hasn't been updated in a couple of months, so it doesn't upgrade very, very often. But it does give us this ink player here that we need to here is story and the intercept. First, we need to rebuild our library. So ink files, when they get compiled down into JSON. So for your stories here, you'll have an ink file story and a JSON file here. And your ink story, you can just play it here in the editor. And it does basically the same thing that Inky does. And you have your text and then your choices down below. You also have variables for your story state, so your different variables, your save load, which it gets saved to another JSON file. So if you wanted to save it for subsequent playthroughs, it's pretty easy just to save it as a JSON file on disk, and then when you load back up, it will have your progress, what story knots you have been through, and what the states of all your variables can get saved there. So here, yeah, it's just playing through there, and then it ends. We have our seed, so if you need to automate your testing, you can do so. That's the basic of the ink player, just so you can do some rapid testing. You can't actually type in the ink player here. For that, I usually will use Visual Studio Code. So here you can rebuild the ink library, or you can recompile it from here. You can also open it, but I don't think I have that installed. Open with code. We can. Yeah. So here I'm just opening it in Visual Studio Code. So when you double click on an ink file, it will show up here. Trust. This should. There we go. Yes. There we go. So now we have text highlighting, all that good stuff here. And in here in Unity, in our dialog manager, I'll show this on stream in a second, but here in our inspector, we have the dialog system controller, and if we scroll down a bit, we'll see the where is it? There's an ink saver. So this is, we'll use the dialog system's save load system in order to save out to JSON. Oh, here it is. This is the dialog system ink integration. Here it will take in a list of the ink JSON assets, and then it will load these into the dialog system manager in order to play said dialogues. I think this will just work. I don't remember if I broke all this or not. Oh, I need to switch to, whoops. Whoops. I need to switch out the event system here. There we go. So now it's using the input system. This is using Unity 6.5. That just came out like yesterday. And I don't know why I did not start at the beginning. I think I did break something here. This is a little bit better. Oh, I think my scale is jacked up. Okay, hang on. Let's try this again. we're going to try story. There we go. This is still too big. I'm not sure why. So our player dialogue is at the bottom. The NPC, Monsieur Fogg, is at the top. Then our choices are in the middle. But I don't know why they're so big. And then the wager is the quest there in the top right corner. There we go. All right, so the characters are waiting. Think. All right, this one's going a little bit better. And this is in do not destroy unload. I don't think we can actually see the story in the inspector. So this is the intercept, and just this. Oh, come on. Okay. And yeah, this is actually a really, really long one here with different knots and diverts and whatnot, depending on what you've chosen. Your variables here at the top. And a couple of functions. Here, I probably should go into debug mode. But yeah, here they put all of their states just behind true-false booleans here. This could have also have been a list as well. That could have probably saved just a few lines of code here. But yeah. Probably should have put some voice acting in here or something. Not sure why that broke. Interesting. Huh. It might be because the story text is probably too long. That's interesting. Didn't actually go that far. Yeah, because the meshes can't be that big. Anyways. Let's see. These are these groups. And yeah, that's the JSON. Okay. When we get to here, debugging, variable tracking. So, yeah, you'll basically, the Inky here will actually tell you if you have any errors. It's pretty good about that. So if your story doesn't actually end, it'll tell you that there's no end state here. If you end up in like an infinite loop, it'll actually tell you that as well. I think I can just confirm, there we go. So you do want to make sure that your story can be completed. You usually won't get very far before it will tell you it's not ending properly. The other thing is in backing up. Oops. I don't want to do that. So yeah, you do want to avoid excessive branching, just because it's really hard to know where you are in your story. It just makes it harder to test. So if you're, 10 or 12 branches deep and you want to change something, you're going to have to actually replay through your whole game in order to get back to that particular state. You can create save states here, so you can save after like every decision and just save scum it that way. But that is hard to automate as well. And you do want to test every path. So just make sure that if you have like a good path and an evil path, that you test both of them just to make sure it does actually work. And everything in between needs to be tested as well. For scalability, I guess I didn't. You can have include files, so you don't have to have everything in one file. So you can have your I can show you can have like your variables in a separate file from the rest of your knots. And so this way you can have multiple people working on your story at the same time. Just at the beginning, you'll need to have this in your main ink file. When you compile, you'll need the include, which I don't know if I have an example. Oh, I do actually. It is in Unity. Why is it repainting? Okay. Oh, Lord. Okay. We will start to wrap this up here. So we showed the ink docs on the GitHub. There are a lot of examples of other stories out there as well. The ink library here has on their main page here a bunch of links to different tools, other editor tools, and also down at the bottom you see a list of ink games as well that you can look at to get some inspiration from. There's actually quite a few of them. There was some game jams and competitions. Ink Jam over on itch.io a couple of years ago. I don't think they did one last year. It doesn't look like. Did I finish? Oh, Lord. Nope. And there are a couple of upcoming games as well. None of these I've actually heard of. And man, Unity may have just crashed. Boo. Oh well, I don't know why it's doing that. But yeah, that is basically it here. I'm going to continue working on this. I've got a kind of a multiplayer system almost working yet. I didn't quite get it finished for tonight. But my basic idea is to kind of have a multiplayer story-driven thing where you and your team of like 4 players or whatever can collaborate and work on a story together. So when one of these story bits comes up, you all can vote on what story paths to take. and work together in order to complete the different tasks that might come up during the dialogue. It's really dead. Boo. But yeah, that's kind of it. I'll put this video up on YouTube. I might edit it down a little bit and have the Unity bits cut in here because this laptop did not want to duplicate the screen with everybody. Man, that is super annoying. Balls. Man, didn't like that either. And the task. There we go. All right. Yeah, we'll recover. Looked at that. And yeah, I guess that is that for now. I don't know what we'll talk about next month, but we might end up switching days because it seems like Thursdays is no good for a lot of people. If you guys have any suggestions or anything like that, feel free to drop them in the Discord. We got a link to the Discord here on the meetup page, and also should be in the description of this video whenever I decide to post it. There we go. At least it came back up this time. All right. Okay. I guess that's it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. It's almost 8.